to sustain that process. I'll gladly give way to the Shadow Home Secretary. Perhaps she'll have a credible policy to put to the House.
I think it's our view that the Rwanda Plan won't actually deal with the problem of the backlog of people.
I mean, to kick off, I don't think the government thinks Rwanda is a safe country either, and let me explain.
More from Beatrice and Tyrone Steele later. But let's head off to last week's Opposition Day debate on the Rwanda Plan cost and asylum system, where Minister for Legal Migration and most of the swivel-eyed loons were trying to convince everyone that the Rwanda Plan was not only going to stop the boats, also going to stop the use of hotels as well.
I think it is absolutely right that the government prioritises closing hotels. That is a policy that we have set, that we are delivering against. They keep saying that it's going up. What we are seeing is hotels being closed. That is happening week on week, and we will continue to sustain that process. I'll gladly give way to the Shadow Home Secretary. Perhaps she'll have a credible policy to put to the House.
Would he confirm that the latest figures are that the number of people in asylum hotels is 20% higher than last December, when the Prime Minister promised to end asylum hotel use, and that the costs have gone up from 6 million a day, when the Prime Minister complained about it last December, to over 8 million a day, as he just said today?
Yes or no?
Yes.
The fact is that we are closing asylum hotels, and it is absolutely the right strategy to take. And what I might say is that I regularly hear from colleagues across this House complaining about hotels being open in their constituencies. I want to get on and close those hotels. My colleagues want to get on and close those hotels, and that is precisely what we will do.
Didn't answer the question, did he? Just parroted utter nonsense, didn't he? But anyway, the next day there was a Human Rights Joint Committee on the safety of the Rwanda Asylum and Immigration Bill, where Beatrice, Head of Public Affairs and Policy of the Refugee Council, had a different point of view.
I think it's our view that the Rwanda Plan won't actually deal with the problem of the backlog of people that are already in the country and will continue to come. So since the Act got royal assent in July last year and up to the end of last year, 33,000 asylum cases entered that backlog, and once the duty to remove is commenced, if those claims haven't been processed by then, they will be subject to the duty to remove, and so would any dependents of those claimants, and potentially also have their claim declared permanently inadmissible. And of that 33,000 that we saw enter the system in the second half of last year, over 15,000 of them are people who have made that dangerous journey across the Channel. And so those people, we estimate almost all of them would be inadmissible. So these are men, women and children who've made that very dangerous journey, whose claims would be inadmissible and subject to the duty to remove. Well, the government would say that the Rwanda Plan is uncapped, but in reality it's clear that the capacity of the plan, and certainly in its early stages, will be only in the hundreds. So you have potentially a number of hundreds perhaps being moved to Rwanda, but a total of 15,000 plus that are in this backlog, in this permanent limbo, with no plan to deal with them and no ability to move on with their lives.
So between a jumped-up little toxic Tory or an expert, who am I going to believe? Gee, let me think. Ooh, that's a toughie, innit? But then Tyrone Steele, Interim Legal Director for Justice, was asked this simple question about whether Rwanda is a safe country for refugees.
I mean, to kick off, I don't think the government thinks Rwanda is a safe country either, and let me explain. So if we take a step back, as you say, the Supreme Court judgment was fairly comprehensive in its assessment of Rwanda and the deficiencies of Rwanda as a place to send migrants and refugees, and the Supreme Court highlighted many different factors with respect to that. So poor compliance with international obligations and past failures, poor understanding of the Refugee Convention. You had 100% rejection rates of categories of individual from Syria, Afghanistan, Yemen in the period 2020 to 2022, where it's the inverse scenario here in the UK. Those cohorts have very high success rates here. Human rights record poor access to legal remedy, judicial and legal representation and independence is poor in Rwanda as well. There's a whole panoply of factors there which led the Supreme Court to make that factual assessment. So what did the government do when the Supreme Court gave its judgment back in November? Instead of taking a step back and saying, okay, we tried our best, the policy's not working, reality has taken us this far. Instead, they've tried to fundamentally change reality. And so that's what this bill does. It prevents the courts from making that factual assessment again. It tries to create this legal fiction that Rwanda is safe, despite the fact that the Supreme Court found on the basis of all this evidence that that's not the case, and attempts to shield government decision-making from any further inquiry on that issue.
Very interesting, eh? Especially when he said that the government knows it won't work as well. Also, with us granting 6 Rwandan refugees asylum to this country as well, you just couldn't make it up, could you? But at the end of the day, it's not their money they're wasting, is it? Even when our Nasher Tom spoke about closing hotels and this Rwanda Plan is a deterrent, is just utter bollocks, isn't it, with what Beatrice said? Conclusive proof that this extreme Brexit Tory government is well-beating at spending other people's money out there. Also, we need to be honest here as well, if it was their money they were spending on this bill, it wouldn't see the light of day, would it? And certainly wouldn't be going through Parliament either, would it? But what do you guys think? Let me know down below, and I shall bid you farewell and take care, my friends.